We are your local election headquarters. All eyes are on the midterm elections all throughout the country today. We will be providing you all the coverage you need right here on your local election headquarters. Helping me in that endeavor are these two gentlemen. I got Harrison Golden here. He's our correspondent, our Capitol correspondent and political reporter. Also, I have John Couvillion with JMC Analytics and Polling, and he is our numbers guy. So we have a long day ahead of us with the midterm election. And first of all, let's get to these 6 congressional races, what we expect from those races. We also have parish and local races and 6 amendments. We'll get to those in a moment. First of all, John, I'll go to you. What do we expect with the 6 congressional races today?
So in Louisiana, what I would fully expect is that all 6 congressional incumbents will be reelected without much incident in the primary, without the need for runoff. We'll have a pretty good idea as the polls close and the absentee/early vote is released immediately after that at 8 o'clock. How strong those incumbents are. If they're starting off with above 60% of the vote, you can pretty much check them off as reelected. If, however, their early vote is in the low 50s and 40s, they're going to have a rough night ahead of them. But the worst I could possibly foresee at this point would be the 3rd congressional district in southwest Louisiana, where because of the sheer volume of opposition he has, that Clay Higgins possibly, remote possibility, but possibly could be forced into a runoff in December. And
we might even hear from that campaign a little later on tonight. And Harrison Golden, you'll be stationed at the Secretary of State's office, sort of doing double duty there, because not only that's where the election results come in, that's also a race as well. What do we expect from your coverage?
Oh man, okay, so we've got in total 9 candidates for the Secretary of State's position. We got 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 no-party candidate. But again, really at this point, the question is, will Kyle Ardoin keep what has been his interim spot? Will he make that a full-time role? Obviously, he's been making a big deal of the "Keep Kyle" catchphrase over the past few months and weeks.
But he's seen some controversy lately.
Oh, definitely, as far as the voting machine contracts and you know, what could be made out of those. Making, again, particular tensions between Julie Stokes, the question there of whether she could carry enough bipartisan support, the crossover appeal as she's been trying to do with very extensive advertising campaign over the past few weeks especially. And then Rick Edmonds here in Baton Rouge having the establishment support, the East Baton Rouge Republican Party last week, again making their endorsement of him. But really a lot of other Republican Party groups have gotten behind him in this race. So in my opinion, again at the risk of jumping too much, but you know, we could at least see the incumbent here and then perhaps either Edmonds or Stokes making through.
We'll be watching the race, obviously. And Harrison, I know you wanted to talk to John Couvillion about the early voting numbers.
Yes, certainly. And I mean, we've been seeing an incredibly high deal of these early voting numbers. Is it high enough at this point, looking at these numbers, that these races, some of these races could at least be already decided here?
Well, there's actually 2 separate parts to your question. There definitely is a high level of early voting, which for a non-presidential year has already broken records and has exceeded the 2008 early voting. In terms of the bearing that it has on the races, I don't really see much, because all 6 incumbents should be fairly safe, with only Clay Higgins possibly be forced into a runoff. So the early vote will not materially affect whether that happens or not, even though it has been a very high volume.
Certainly, and that next vote, again, that runoff could be December the 8th. We're going to have a lot of ballot initiatives at the local level, as well as any sort of Secretary of State's runoff. And that's almost a certainty here in this Secretary of State's race, that there will be those final 2 candidates vying next month. But again, like you said, John, even more reason to say to the public, your vote matters today. That's why to go to the polls if you haven't already.
Absolutely. And the congressional races here in Louisiana, you had mentioned, and I think a lot of other pollsters have as well, we don't expect a change there, but on the national level, the Democrats could take control of Congress. What are you seeing in those races?
So what I'm seeing happening there's really 2 different types of races going right now. You have the United States Senate, 35 seats are up, 26 are held by Democrats, 9 are held by Republicans. Republicans are only vulnerable, in my opinion, in 2 states. For the Democrats, I see them as being vulnerable in up to 4 states. The good news for those who don't want to stay up too late to watch the Senate results is that pretty much by the time the polls close in the Central Time Zone, which of course we are in, you'll have a pretty good idea as to what's going to happen to the United States Senate. The House is a different matter. There, the Republicans are much more vulnerable. I'm forecasting it's not going to be a very good night tonight for them. More specifically, though, for the benefit of your viewers, most of the Republicans' problems with regards to House seat losses are going to be concentrated in states that are in the Eastern time zone, which is an hour and ahead of us. If, for instance, after those polls close, I see Republican losses in the single digits, I think that it'll be a nip and tuck kind of night throughout. If, however, the Republicans are approaching 50 to 20 seat losses after those Eastern Seaboard states have closed, that would portend a very bad night for them because, of course, there's also other problem districts in the suburbs of Chicago and Houston and Denver and California where up to 5 Republicans could possibly lose their seats. But the good news is, like I said, I think we'll have a pretty good feel early on, which is after the closing of the states in the Eastern time zone, how things are going in the battle of the House.
We'll have to end it there for now. To be continued for sure. We have a long day ahead of us. Be sure to keep it right here. We are your local election headquarters. We plan to prove it today. We will have all of those returns that we were just talking about, and we'll have analysis as well.